Good morning, everyone. So today we are going to talk about vanilla JavaScript. So let's get into it. Now, this morning, like 20 minutes ago, I woke up, pulled out my phone, and had a look at some of the comments to kind of get a feel for where everything's at. And the first comment I see is from one of my subscribers who's actually watched one of the really old videos. I think it's the first among the first 100 where the audio is even worse than it is now. Anywho, he had watched it and in essence asked the question what I mean when I say vanilla JavaScript, because I make a distinction in that video between when do you use React and when do you use vanilla JavaScript. And the question was basically, what do you mean? Are you talking about TypeScript, ES5, ES6, yada yada yada? And this is such a great question. You don't even understand why this is such a great question, because it's a great question on two levels. In order for it to make sense to you, I have to go back to roughly 6 or 7 years ago or something of that nature. Back in the days when jQuery was the biggest thing in front-end. I don't even think the term front-end really existed back in those days. It started coming around, but anywho, you have no idea. If you have not been part of that boom of popularity, you don't know, most likely, that jQuery was the biggest thing around. It was the Beatles of JavaScript. It was bigger than anything you can imagine. It was bigger than Angular. It's bigger than React. No one worked in JavaScript virtually without knowing jQuery. It was actually to the point that people couldn't actually make a distinction between the two. They had no idea. I saw back in those days, people would actually post questions about why something wouldn't be working, for example, DOM access, and one of the most common replies to that question was, well, do you have jQuery on your page? And they go, what do you mean? What do you mean jQuery? They didn't understand that it was a library. They thought that the $sign was actually a part of JavaScript itself. Now, this means that at that point in time, the confusion was actually part of JavaScript, and what's jQuery was a little bit ambiguous to people. They couldn't really figure the distinction out right. So let's fast forward today, and let's talk about JavaScript as it is today. Today, the language is much more feature-rich, and jQuery is virtually pointless at this point. It has no bearing whatsoever. But we have another suite of things that are causing this confusion between what is actual JavaScript and what's something else. One of the most confusing things to an absolute beginner could be, let's say that you started learning React. Do you know what JSX is? You know how you can actually put HTML inside of your React component? Do you think that's JavaScript? This is what I'm going to define for you in this video. So let's start with defining the distinction between these different concepts that are common in JavaScript. So, vanilla JavaScript, short answer is, it's the thing that's going to run in your browser. If you want to do a check for yourself, copy paste the code that you are writing right now, the thing that you are unsure about, whether or not it's just vanilla JavaScript, and paste it into your browser's console. Does it work? Just as it is, without any tools, anything else. Does it work? If the answer is yes, then that's JavaScript. If that doesn't work, paste it into Node, and does that work? Then it's JavaScript with a little bit of in the Node ecosystem, if you will, because we have to make a distinction between JavaScript as a language is still JavaScript, but the APIs, the different functionalities that you have access to in the browser is different from what you have in Node. Node is more powerful, but doesn't, of course, have a window object or something like that that the browser is providing to you in order to do DOM manipulation and change things on the page or access functionality within the browser. So, with that defined, what is going on with this other stuff then? Well, isn't that real JavaScript? Well, now we're touching on something that is a little bit of a sore spot for me, because I absolutely hate, with a passion, what's happened to our community. I hate that we are now in a world where we spend so much time adding things on top of JavaScript in order for it to make it to do things that it was never really designed to do. One of my biggest passion bubbles is TypeScript. Now, I love TypeScript, but TypeScript is not JavaScript. Let's make that distinction. TypeScript is not JavaScript. Flow is not JavaScript. It is something that you put on top of JavaScript in order to enrich what JavaScript can actually do. Think of it this way. The reason why you can do most of these things is because JavaScript is all text-based. In other words, it's a scripting language that you can simply, where it's fairly easy for you. If you write your own tool that can interpret the text, you can actually very easily add things on top of JavaScript. This is where things such as transpilers come into play. And those are even worse. I hate them so much. I really hate this idea. Let me tell you why I hate them. Babel and all of these different transpilers, I mean, the value that they bring is great. I think they are great, but sometimes I feel like we are getting to a point where we kind of, it's almost the same problem I see with the browser and the platform of the browser versus that people are impatient. In my opinion, people are impatient. Like you can solve most of these problems that you have today, and you can do so with just using the standards and doing things in a good practice type of way, which is sustainable over time. But you can't wait, so you start adding all of this bullshit complexity on top of everything, which brings a value, but I don't believe personally that value all the time is all that great. I absolutely hate this. When you add stage 0 functionality, or the other stages as well, to Babel, it actually happened to me just the other day. My colleague came up to me, and this is a guy he's more senior than I am. He has been working for a lot more years than I have. And he tried to figure out why his test was failing, and I just went in there and I had a look at, because everything was working fine in one section of the project, and we were writing a Cypress test basically, which is a different environment. It's not part of our Webpack build cycle. And I looked through the code, and I saw that he had attempted to use a spread operator inside of an object. That's not part of the standard yet. And he doesn't know that, and to him it seems to be perfectly fine, good old JavaScript, because we have a transpiler step that polyfills in that functionality for us, even though we have object.assign, which does virtually the exact same thing. From his perspective, it's the same thing. So why did we add that? Because it's nice to have. Makes our life about this much. Like my fingers won't go that far together, but that much better. Because now you can use a spread syntax instead of object.assign, which is a few characters less. And that's great, right? Anywho, this is a problem. I really feel that it is a problem. I think that these transpilers and all this stuff is just causing a little confusion around. And apparently, rightly so, if this person who posted a comment is confused so when I say vanilla JavaScript, if you don't know what I mean, then I think that almost validates the point that I'm making right now. You don't know. There's too much going on. There's so much stuff that's added on top of it that people don't actually know. JSX is even worse. Do you know, as I said, that JavaScript does not actually support you writing HTML inside of it? It's only in React land, and it's only thanks to using a transpiler that you can actually do that. Now, I'm not saying that it's bad necessarily, because JSX makes it more readable, because HTML is for visual components type of things, very easy to understand. But if you drop that code into your browser, it won't work, because what's happening is that when you're using a bundler such as Webpack with Babel, you will actually convert those tags into regular JavaScript objects with functions and functionality and so forth. That's it. It's just a way for you to add syntactic sugar on top of JavaScript. Elm is the same thing. Same thing goes for TypeScript. TypeScript itself is just another tool that allows you to write TypeScript files that is virtually JavaScript with a way of expressing types. If you drop that code into a browser, that's not, but you have to understand that that's not JavaScript. It's JavaScript plus something else. So if you're ever unsure what's actual JavaScript and what's not, drop it in the browser or drop it into Node. Try to run the code, and if the interpreter doesn't understand, then it's not JavaScript. It's actually that simple. So hopefully this clears some stuff up. TypeScript is not vanilla JavaScript. React, the framework and so forth, or rather JSX more specifically, is not JavaScript. This is true. All of it is true. And I hope that you can join me in trying to push the idea that maybe instead of trying to ad hoc patch in a bunch of stuff on top of JavaScript and pushing it to the rest of the world as just another great idea, maybe we should really sit down and have a think about what JavaScript actually needs in order to have the same type of stability and value and so forth that we enjoy in other languages. Because I don't see many people trying to redefine how something like, I don't know, Java works, for example. Well, that's actually not true now that I think about it. We have Scala, Groovy. Maybe this is a sickness in all languages. Maybe we just have this need, some people just have this need to spend more time trying to slightly improve something that is pretty much, in my opinion, good enough, instead of focusing on making the thing that we have standardized on into something that is pretty great. And for me, that's in JavaScript, that's two things right now. First and foremost, I want to have types. Let's make TypeScript the standard, please. Let's just do it. I don't care about the other stuff. I just want types. Second thing, I want math to work. Can we please have a number system that works with rounding so we can do money calculations in JavaScript? Those are the two big things. Third, if I'm getting greedy, is I would like to have optionals. Look at Swift or Kotlin's optional notation with the question mark. That's the dream for me. Anywho, that's how I feel about it, and hopefully this has cleared up what vanilla JavaScript is. Have a great day.